Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to BlizzCon Day 1. We've just finished up the StarCraft 2 World Championship Series action for the day. It is time for the StarCraft Remastered Ultimate Title Fight. We've got one hell of a show for you to end your first day of BlizzCon, and I couldn't be more proud to bring it to you. I'm Nathanius, joined for our end of the day segment by In Control, Zombie Grub, and Pig. It's going to be a best of 5 between Jaedong and Bisu, two absolute legends. How stoked are you guys to watch these two duke it out?
You know, it's a cliche. Yes, the audience, if you guys can hear, they're loving it. It's to call it a dream come true is a cliche, but it actually, like, I've been going to BlizzCons for years. I joked on a panel last year with Mike Morheim, like 10 feet away from me, that I had snuck into like the first 3 BlizzCons and watched guys like this play, to be now on this couch to break it down and to have Tastosis commentating and you guys to share this with. It's going to be so amazing. I'm so excited.
I'm so happy you're happy we're sharing this.
Yes.
Thank you. It's really exciting. As someone who didn't get into Brood War when it was at its height of popularity, I got into it because I got into StarCraft 2, and then I went backwards. But to become a fan through that, and then now come back, kind of circle it around and have the huge show, huge match on stage, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. How excited are you for this, Pig?
We go back to my childhood playing, muck around LAN games. Some of the first RTS games I played against people was just hopping in and playing against my brother in Brood War. And I remember in 2010 when I first started watching competitive Brood War matches, and it was what got me into StarCraft 2. Jaedong, one of my favorite players, I was always going back and looking at his old videos and just kind of seeing these cool things. I honestly think there's no other game like the original StarCraft when it comes to watching. There's just so many epic battles spread out across the map. There's so many different ways the players can express themselves through the game. I think it's a viewing experience unlike any other esport.
I think my first exposure to esports in general was my friend when we were playing Brood War sending me a video of was that airplane hangar. They walked Flash off the plane to go play in this grand finals. This is the craziest thing I've ever seen. And these two players, Jaedong and Bisu, are absolute legends. In Control, I think you're much more qualified than I am to talk about the great accomplishments both these players have.
Jaedong is, Artosis is probably rightfully so the greatest Zerg to ever play the game, and he pushed the boundaries of the game, what we thought possible. We always talk about 400 APM, 350, and we get a sense of how fast that is, but he was doing it where people were designing entire styles and builds to destroy him, to kind of target him, and still able to do that. And then Bisu, on the other hand, is one of those revolutionary players that, and part of what's so cool about Brood War is it was around for so long, it didn't get changed, and yet people discovered things. They discovered styles and ways that completely changed it, and Bisu was one of those guys. Kind of like Need did in PvP not too long ago. This was PvZ, and it went so across the board, it stretched through time and space that it changed the way people play the matchup forever. It was amazing.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite player here that you followed throughout the years, Zombie Grub?
Well, I mean, I got into Jaedong through StarCraft 2, but then I went back and watched a bunch of old Pro League VODs, and he's definitely my favorite player. He's been my favorite player for a long time. Bisu is amazing. He's quite handsome. That jazz.
That helps.
Yeah, that does help.
Jaedong's a cutie too, though.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Both very handsome gentlemen.
Yes.
With Jaedong, it's the determination, though. When you see Jaedong on stage, when he wants to win, he gets that killer look in his eye, and it's hard. You can feel the competitiveness just seeping out of him. It's always cool.
We could spend hours. Jaedong was on Evil Geniuses. I had the fortune of being his teammate for a long time, and you hit the nail on the head. There was a couple times I went in that booth after a DreamHack or something like that, and it was like a tension in the air for how bad he wanted to win. And that's part of what's so special. He comes here as a guy who's had a long career. His body's kind of failing him. It's not for everyone to play at this speed and play this much. So Jaedong is eventually going to move on, and for him to come over here and give us this title fight is incredible. I'm so excited.
And one hell of a title fight it is going to be. We won't make you wait much longer, ladies and gentlemen. It is time for the StarCraft Remastered Ultimate Title Fight. Let's go to the stage and see Jaedong versus Bisu.
Thank you very much, Nathanius. You are indeed correct. It is time for the ultimate title fight between two absolute legends at the game. We have the best Protoss player of all time going up against the best Zerg player of all time. The Revolutionist versus the Tyrant. Please welcome on stage, it is Bisu and Jaedong.
This is part of the ongoing saga of who is the best StarCraft player in the world.
nice left on Hydra's being taken out by great stores by Bisu, and then Jaedong, way too many units. Oh, Jaedong is hurting right now.
It is time to start our best of 5 with Jaedong versus Bisu. Two of the, I would say, foremost influential people in Brood War professional gaming. This is going to be a match to remember, Artosis.
It is no understatement to say that these are the greatest Zerg and Protoss players of all time across StarCraft 1. They are both players that have, as In Control said, revolutionized the game. And you are about to see something quite spectacular, and this could be the last time we ever see something like this.
That's right. If you weren't familiar with this, in South Korea there is compulsory military service for all able-bodied young Korean men. Now, a lot of professional gamers postpone that since they want to continue their career onward, but eventually you do have to go back. And it's about 2 years, maybe a little bit over or under 2 years. And that's a big hiccup in the professional gaming career of any professional gamer. And the fact that both of these guys may be having to go to the military very soon means there's a lot on the line for this match here tonight.
That's right. They've both been talking about going in 2018, but they have been very, very active. They've been qualifying for the top leagues in Korea. Bisu just finished up in the top 4 of the ASL. Jaedong was in that tournament as well. Didn't fare quite as well as Bisu, but these guys are in super top form and going to show a magnificent series, no doubt about it.
Jaedong, out of all the 20 years of StarCraft Brood War, this guy was the best at Zerg.
Yes.
He lived through so many different eras and metas, and to this day is still considered to be the all-time great.
Yeah, I mean, he is known as the Legend Killer, and then eventually the Tyrant of Zerg. Someone who beat all of the big names, the most decisive player of his race ever to have existed, the greatest micro, the greatest macro, the greatest strategician. I mean, he's Jaedong, and if you don't know who Jaedong is, oh my God, I wish I were you so I could go back in time and relearn it. That's how epic he is.
And Bisu, his opponent, is a player who revolutionized the matchup. We did not know that you could fast expand in Protoss versus Zerg until Bisu mapped it out perfectly. And let's not forget, fast expanding is such a big feature in PvZ and StarCraft 2, so that even extended into the sequel to Brood War. So let's see how these two guys do against each other. Right now, Jaedong and Bisu, I would say roughly even in skill. StarCraft Remastered having a huge resurgence in Korea as well as around the rest of the world, but the Korean scene has really received some new blood, and these guys have been training hardcore, streaming every day, and they're going to be bringing us some great games.
Well, they've had a lot of knockdown battles in the past. I mean, when you get the best versus the best, what else are you really going to expect at that point? Cannot wait to see what they're both going to bust out here. Basically the quickest players from their race, really not wasting a lot of time doing anything that's off.
Let's also keep in mind that Jaedong's somebody who could disarm Bisu right away. This has also been quite trendy in this matchup in general. Bisu does like to do a lot of offensive gateway pushes into expanding, but we could see some more traditional fast expanding with cannons going first as well.
He definitely has a giant range of play and knows how to play against Jaedong quite a bit, so gonna be a good one.
All right, we are now in our game. This is game number 1 in this PvZ. Introducing our players in the upper left, in the purple. Make some noise for Bisu! And his opponent here in the bottom right. In the green, our Zerg player, he is Jaedong!
Of course, that's Bisu, and the guy we saw before is Jaedong. Forgive us.
So, going into this game, we see it is a pylon over here at the natural expansion for Bisu. Now, there's still several options you can take from here. You can either try to make a gateway right away and try to rush. That's a little bit more trendy, especially in 2017 PvZ. There's also the option to make a forge and either just do a defensive play or cannon rush. But this is quintessential Bisu. While this may look standard if you follow a lot of StarCraft 1 now, Bisu is the person that proved that you could consistently do an opening like this with a pylon outside of your main, not in the middle of the map, but at your natural, and actually safely defend pretty much everything.
Well, here he's throwing down that forge, so with the second probe coming out, there is always the possibility of something like that cannon rush, but here we see that Jaedong is getting the pool first, so not very likely to see that out of Bisu coming up.
So the probe is now here to try to block the drone. It looks like one of these two guys is going to have to turn around. Whoa! Okay, so that was split second there with who was actually going to win initially in that fight. I was wondering if Jaedong was going to pull away in time, but he takes out that first drone. It does, yes, it is going to be a Nexus first. Like we were saying earlier, there is the option to do some kind of cannon rushing, but I believe Zerg went pool first here. Yes, he did, so that would not be possible.
Okay, so by the way, guys, you can see the APM on the screen. These guys have both been professional gamers for many, many, many years, playing at these ridiculous speeds, almost 400 APM for Jaedong at the moment. Bisu, of course, a bit over that right now. I mean, that is lightning fast, and I tell you, we have stood behind these guys, watched them in first person, and it is a magnificent thing to behold, the speed of a StarCraft 1 pro gamer.
That's right. Now, Zerg has two options to break it down to the basics here. Zerg's either going to try to get a quick kill here and try to push in, because even though cannons do a lot of damage, they also die very quickly. So you have the right number of Hydralisks or Zerglings. You can end up taking out that fast expand. I think that would be ill-advised to try against Bisu. Jaedong may instead try to go for more of a macro play. We see the third hatchery is being made down here in the bottom center. That doesn't mean that it's necessarily a macro game. We'll know as soon as we see drones versus attacking units being produced.
Yeah, this definitely could turn into something like a 3-hatch Hydra, which is a super aggressive all-in type of move. But there's a little mini game going on right now. That's one way you can think about StarCraft 1. See this probe running around? He needs to keep this alive. If Jaedong is able to pick off his probe, he won't be able to tell what type of rush that Jaedong might be doing.
That's right, and the fact that there aren't that many lings being shown right now to the probe of Bisu is telegraphing that it seems like Jaedong's going for a macro opening. If there were more attacking units being made, he would have surrounded that probe and killed it off. Here comes the big scout. Looks like he will come down now into the main. He will see that there is, in fact, a layer being made with drones continuing to mine the gas. And back at home for Bisu, we're still looking. Is there a cybernetics core made? Can we see it get a shot in the main? I believe there's one. Should be in the main in the upper left. There it is. And so it's going to be a Citadel of a Dune instead of a Stargate. That's what we were looking for.
Yeah, that's really interesting to see that that's what Bisu wants to open up with. You know, the very most standard type of play that you can see in a PvZ would be a Zerg possibly going for a quick Spire. Of course, the Stargate going to come up for Protoss to pick off some Overlords, get that scouting intel after the probe dies, and, you know, defend against possible Mutalisks.
So here comes the first Zealot. Now note that Jaedong only has 2 Zerglings here. What he can do with this Zealot is tuck it behind the minerals. That means that the Zerglings can't get a good surround on it. And if he can poke out and kill drones, he will. This means that Jaedong has to overmake Zerglings in order to kill off this one Zealot.
Now that is a lot of Zerglings here, so he can kill it off. Let's see the micro here of Jaedong pulling back the injured Zerglings. Look at that, losing nothing so far, dealing a lot of damage, and it only takes 3 hits for a Zealot to kill a Zergling, but still, none have died so far.
Yeah, big win there. The Zealot does go down without Jaedong suffering a single loss other than, you know, a few bruises on the Zerglings, but of course they're going to regen health. A second Zealot is headed southbound now, going to enter back into that same expansion. While Jaedong's forking his Zerglings out on the map to spot for something like this, that Zealot's already gotten inside.
The Stargate is up right now, so he is going into some Corsair play while getting that Templar Archives. Another Zealot poking into this third base, going between those minerals, seeing what he can get done. But Jaedong's micro with these Zerglings is phenomenal.
That's right. A few more lings are taken out here. It is peculiar that Bisu actually went for a Stargate after the Citadel. That's unusual, so we might want to keep our eyes peeled for that and see if there's going to be any deviation from a normal tech route. It appears to be Corsair DT. It looks like he's getting +1 air weapons here for the Corsairs. The Spire's going to finish around the same time as when the Corsair arrives there. And Scourge are the initial hard counter for Corsairs until you can get enough of them to shut down Scourge as they try to approach.
Yeah, you know, normally you'll get about 4 Scourge to chase away those Corsairs. In the meantime, Bisu will be flying around, seeing if he can pick off some Overlords, scout what's going on as well. But we should see a DT on the map pretty soon as well, shouldn't we? And, oh, and there it is, headed towards the third base.
Now let's take a quick check over here at the third as well as the natural. We have 1 Overlord over here. And it looks like that DT is actually going to come in right now. Nothing over here to spot, but it looks like Bisu decides to go to this location right now. The Lings are coming down. A good surround here on that DT, and another big victory for Jaedong.
Just great defense thus far. Oh, the Scourge going after this first Corsair. If you catch it, that is a big advantage for the Zerg player. Bisu turning and running towards his home, only getting hit by 1.
He's going to manage to make it back, and in good condition. It looks like the other Corsair is also trying to retreat. He needs to get that over a cannon here, and he does. However, Jaedong does save those Scourge. We're now stacked up to 4 Corsairs here. Meanwhile, 1 DT coming in here. There's no links to defend. The drones are being pulled. Again, a DT can one-shot a drone easily. The drone's now being evacuated.
Oh, some good kills already by that DT, catching 3, causing some lost mining time. Now going up into the main base, there is an Overlord here, but no units really to speak of. Going after these drones once again. Looks like 2 or 3 are going to fall in the main as well.
Okay, good catch here, but the DT still lives, and he's just going to go ahead and target this all down to try to take out that as many drones as he can in the rest of that situation. The Corsairs are stacking up. Can we get a shot of the Protoss' main if we have a chance here? Good kill. No probe trapped behind the minerals there, but if he chooses to, he will squeeze 1 probe into the back, group that probe with the Corsairs. That makes the Corsairs bunch up even more.
Well, the Corsairs kind of going around the map right now, seeing what they can get done. Once you get up to a nice number like this, 5 with that +1 attack, they're going to 2-shot Scourge. So definitely they become a little bit stronger. But with this many Hydras out, really Bisu has to be very careful.
That's right. It seems like Jaedong wants to try to apply some pressure up here. Again, with those DTs coming out, the High Templars are just a little bit further behind. We see cannons being made right away. The Corsairs now coming in, trying to kill off some Overlords to hopefully supply block Jaedong. Meanwhile, a big attack over here at the entrance.
These Zealots do not have their legs. Oh, looks like it just now finished. He's got to hold this up while his cannons warp in. A big attack from Jaedong in the front here.
The Zealots now spilling forward, out of range of the cannons. The Hydra's now kiting backwards. It looks like Bisu may want to try to back up if more Hydras do reinforce.
A lot of damage being dealt to these front Hydras, but there are enough. Some nice micro there by Jaedong, kiting his Hydralist, picking off quite a few of the Zealots, but with those cannons, I don't think Bisu's going to be broken.
If you notice the supply right now, Jaedong is supply blocked, so those Corsairs killed some Overlords while that attack was happening. The Hydralisk range can hit the gateway and the forge without the cannons able to cover it. This is one way that Jaedong could slowly try to slow Bisu down.
Oh, this is a very nice move indeed. Those Zealots trying to hold position. He doesn't want to lose any of them right now. The Corsairs running home, getting away over those Hydralists, running from the Scourge still, while some High Templars are being produced for Psystorm.
Right now, there are 5 gateways up here. It's soon to be 4 as Jaedong just now takes out that last gateway. But production from Bisu is looking very good. Very soon here, Protoss is going to have a lot more explosivity on the map with Psionic Storm, with the Zealots already with an attack upgrade and the speed upgrade, and the Corsairs to back them up. Jaedong is going to have to be ready for that. And coming up here is going to be the moment that Bisu will probably try to acquire a third base, and Jaedong might try to shut that down.
Yeah, you know, as he gets that storm out, this Zealot Templar army becomes very, very powerful. Now, the Corsairs flying down towards this third. Some of the Scourge actually do connect. So he loses a Corsair there, but still he's got 5 with +1, which is quite strong.
Defensive play here from Bisu, having the Zealots just move through this area to make sure there's no spotterlings. He wants to get cannons on this high ground. Having control of a high ground, especially at a small ramp, it's insane how many units you can actually hold off from that position. Jaedong may allow Bisu to take this third base since it might be too risky if he tries to come in and deny this. Although it appears that Jaedong might be trying to poke in, or at least check and confirm that this base is already being taken.
Well, the Zealots sitting on top of the ramp. The Hydra's trying to break through right now, but that Psy Storm coming down, a very nice one, hitting the Hydras, really weakening them and forcing them back.
When you're going for Hydra play in this phase of the game, it's really all about the control of the Hydralisks. If you're very good, you can eke out way more damage than a normal player. But if the Protoss gets a few good Psy Storms or a few good flanks for the Zealots, everything falls apart for the Zerg.
I like this poking from Jaedong, but that is way too much on the high ground to really break through. The Hydra's coming up, trying to micro, but if a Psy Storm hits that big clump, that is a massive amount of damage against which Bisu could move out.
This is an incredibly ambitious play here by Jaedong to skirt around the outside of the base. But so far, he hasn't really suffered any losses. If we could just get a check of how many hatcheries the Zerg has back inside of his base, is 1, 2 there. And it looks like it's going to be just one more in the main. And then, okay, there it is. So it's 6 hatch instead of 5. This is much more popular now in 2017. And you really try to power up with this style of play. And the problem is for the Protoss, even though Psionic Storm is good, if they miss a couple times, Zerg wins the fight in the middle of the map every time.
Oh, it's so true. The Psy Storm is really kind of the meat and potatoes of your army. Everything else is buffering so you can get that massive splash damage down. Now with the Lurkers coming out, Zerg has his own splash, and of course we did see before a Queen's Nest on the way for Jaedong, so the Hive will be incoming as well.
Yeah, Jaedong right now powering up. There's also one expansion being taken at the bottom left. This is unusual for as far as where you would expand in this matchup. Normally it's at another natural. That means Jaedong's trying to be sneaky rather than play a straightforward game. And we see now that Jaedong wants to gear up with a Lurker contain. We'll see how many more Lurkers he adds here. But spreading out these Lurkers means he wants to keep the Protoss boxed in instead of trying to turtle back in his own base.
It's definitely really hard to run out and do any damage against that with the Great Concave. But now with these Dragoons, he's going to push forward here. We don't see any Overlords to snipe off observers, so he should be able to push back the Lurkers.
Okay, he's trying to micro back those Lurkers with the Dragoon targeting very good here. The Scourge coming in to try to hit the observers, but no Overlord in sight.
The Zealots rushing forward. A great Psy Storm goes down as well. Only a few Hydras and Lurkers left over, so it looks like Bisu should be able to clean this up. He's got to move those observers forward, though.
Okay, the observers now over these Lurkers. This means this is a huge win here for Bisu. Jaedong has lost control of the map. The bottom left is exposed if Bisu manages to find it. And the fact that those Lurkers were not sent back, and let's say he was turtling a natural and trying to make a bunch of sunken colonies, this means that Jaedong is very fragile at this phase of the game. Bisu could definitely try to come in here with a kill move.
Suddenly, complete map control goes to Bisu, even adding in some Archons to this army, continuing to get upgrades as well. Jaedong's setting up for possibly a counterattack there with that little group of Zerglings, but Bisu is sniffing it out immediately as he checks up here to possibly take a 4th base.
I like this play here by Bisu. What he's doing is being very, very cautious. He says, okay, you don't really have that many opportunities on the map. He's been scouting pretty well with the Corsairs. He's just going to take his 4th base. He's going to turtle up, it looks like probably for a little bit longer, get cannons there, and then start to pressure the Zerg.
Now with the shuttle out, Bisu can start some harassment as well, something he is so well known for. Unfortunately, losing a few Corsairs there in the center of the map, but that's okay. With an Archon and Dragoons out, there's no chance of a Mutalisk switch here for Jaedong.
Okay, so the Nexus is being made, but the push is coming out. Now, Bisu's trying to fish out some of the army for the Zerg so he can pick a fight here in the middle of the map. He juked down to the bottom left and is now headed towards the natural over here. He's trying to find if there's any way that the Zerg army's out of position. Remember, you have only so many units on a control group, so every time you force them to reposition, you're chewing up a lot of their APM.
Now, look at this control from Bisu right now. He's going outside of the natural base of Jaedong. Jaedong is very turtled here, but a lot of his slings coming forward. Many free kills here for Bisu. Some storms going down to help as well. But with this spread of Lurkers, this could be a trap.
He's going to try to come in now. Storms again on the lings. Only a few Lurkers remaining, 1 sunken colony. I think that Jaedong might not actually have enough with the observers plentiful enough to take out any cloaked units here. This may be the beginning of the end.
A lot of Hydras popping out of that Nidus, trying to deal some extra damage, but all the Lurkers being picked off. Not enough units to really buffer for them to get their damage worth, and Bisu just flooding into the natural.
Bisu coming in now. The Hydra den about to be taken out. Not enough Lurkers, legs, or Hydras. As the Zealots spill in, the drones will have to be evacuated.
Oh man, getting on top of these Hydras as they pop out. Those sunken colonies going to be a little bit too late. A lot of the tech and macro starting to be picked off here. Ling's rallying in from the side, but will it be enough? No, GG called by Jaedong, and Bisu will take game number 1.
Very impressive play there by Bisu. It was interesting to see that Jaedong took that main in the bottom left. That looked like it was a ZVT almost, getting the Nidus network set up there. I think Jaedong was more confident he would be able to utilize the Hydralisks more in the early game. And then when that didn't work, he thought he could at least set up a contain there. But at the right moment, Bisu broke out. And generally, if Zerg go for a contain, where they try to lock in the Protoss from moving out, and that contain is broken, usually the Zerg is going to lose.
Yeah, they are really pushed back at that point, and then the mobile Protoss army can run rampant over the map, which is exactly what we saw Bisu doing there. You know, I thought it was kind of interesting. He didn't really get Overlord speed. He didn't have Overlords there to pick off observers to protect those lurkers for the contain.
Now, in this next game, I'm wondering what exactly is Jaedong going to do to mix it up. We saw Bisu with a pretty middle-of-the-road build, definitely testing the waters against Jaedong. Jaedong, of course, always has the option, assuming that the Protoss goes for a fast expand, which is pretty much standard in Brood War. The Zerg always has the option to go for an all-in or a quick kill. But of course, if that doesn't work, then he's down 0-2, and I can't imagine Jaedong being able to bounce back.
It's tough indeed to do a reverse all kill against the best Protoss there ever was. The guy who invented how to play Protoss versus Zerg. Doesn't seem too likely, but if someone can do it, it is this man right here, Jaedong himself.
In that last game, Bisu really abusing his Corsairs. If you remember that Hydralisk attack, it looked pretty scary right when it was outside the entrance of the Protoss's base, but Bisu got in there and killed off the Overlords to supply block the Zerg. The Zerg was not able to reinforce, and that was huge. And that's really what Bisu is able to leverage there, is because all the attacking units were at the Protoss's base, there was no easy way to protect the Overlords, and therefore it sandbagged the progress of the Hydras trying to push forward back there. And that was really problematic for Jaedong. Will he do something like that similar to this game? We can say that Hydra play overall with speed is very popular in the current meta in Brood War. It's gone through many different shifts. I know a lot of people wanted to go into quick lurker contains with Scourge. A lot of people wanted to go, there was periods where you go straight into Mutalisks and try to harass them. But in the current state of StarCraft Brood War, you seem to want to power up a lot of times on 6 hatches and try to get as many Hydras out as possible and start sniping and microing.
You know, it really felt like Bisu's play was just rock solid throughout that game. Jaedong not having too many chances, you know, between being supply blocked, as you brought up, unable to do any early damage. The lurker contain having a very hard time, not even having detection over there for the observer snipes. Bisu just showing his current form, which is amongst the very best in the world right now.
That's right. Bisu coming in here also has options. He's not tied into having a fast expand. He may try to proxy gate or do something else like that as well. Anyways, let's now go in to game number 2. Introducing our player over here in the bottom right in the brown. He is Jaedong! And his opponent here in the upper left, in the orange, he is Bisu!
Our map is going to be Crossing Fields, a kind of newer map for StarCraft Remastered. One that is seeing a lot of play, though, within the professional scene in South Korea.
That's right. This is a map where, of course, you know your opponent's starting location, so it's a lot harder it's harder to defend rushes, but at the same time, you sort of know it's coming, if this makes sense. It's a map where the Protoss also gets 3 bases very easily. A lot of times in PvZ, you're trying to push out for a third. In this case, it's definitely doable. It's also a map that gets cut in half a lot of the time.
Yeah, that is certainly true. Once you get onto that high ground, a lot of great Zerg players will just kind of siege up in a way, burrow a bunch of lurkers, hold the high ground with some Hydras on top of those, maybe some Scourge flying around as well. But of course, Bisu is a master of map control. Once he gets out there, his army is going to move around in such ways that it's really hard to contain him.
So if we notice in the Protoss's main here, if we can get a quick shot of it, that's Pylon in the main. That's not really that normal. Usually you can have it down at the bottom of the ramp. It's also not right by the ramp. Can we get a shot just south of this here at the ramp? Just barely. You have to put another Pylon basically to defend that ramp. You could get some Zealots there, but that tells us he's going to expand over here into the back and play a conservative game since the third, the natural, is so easy to acquire.
Yeah, indeed it is. And the natural is really wide open, so you actually can't really do a very good Protoss wall. And someone who goes for a lot of Zerglings can kind of run around your wall if you try to expand there first. So this has become a pretty common way to open on the map as Protoss.
Yeah, it's having a high ground advantage while taking an expand is really nice. It's much harder to break a ramp in StarCraft 1 than it is in StarCraft 2. It's almost comical. If you're on the high ground, just a few cannons and something there to block, maybe something there with like a Templar with Psystorm, it's generally ill-advised for a Zerg to try to push up that. So Zerg may take this game in a different direction and try to expand and power up much more quickly.
Well, those 3 bases being taken by Jaedong, throwing down his pooling gas, starting to get ready to tech up a little bit. Of course, Bisu will just utilize Zealots for his early defense. No need to cannon when you have a ramp kind of guarding all of your bases.
And we have the cybernetic score coming up here now, and the fact that he didn't have to get a forge means he's going to get his tech up a little bit more quickly, which changes the whole rhythm of this game. Will he get a Stargate? It's definitely a high probability, but there are other options for Protoss as well. Let's not forget in the last game, Bisu went with an unusual timing of Citadel to tech into DTs very quickly before the Stargate, so that Jaedong might be caught off guard by how soon the DT gets there.
And truthfully, he was. That DT ended up getting something like 7 or 8 drone kills. So that's actually really, really significant. Unlike Zerg in StarCraft 2, in StarCraft 1, you're actually playing with less drones than your opponent might have probes or SCVs. It's just the balance of the economy is quite a bit different.
Very true. So every time you kill any drones, that Zerg player is in a lot of trouble. Bisu, going back into Bisu's main, he will be choosing that definitive tech here, and it is going to be a Stargate, which is not surprising. This is sort of your bread and butter Protoss tech versus Zerg. You want to get the Corsairs out. Of course, you can kill Overlords with it, but it also allows you to scout and try to monitor what the Zerg is doing. This was a big problem in PvZ in general that Protoss has had to grapple with for years in Brood War, is trying to figure out what Zerg is doing, because Zerg had so many different directions they could take the game. And then, of course, Protoss has had to figure out when they get the Corsair out and scout around and poke with it, what then do you tech with to keep you safe? Because you're investing a lot of your gas in a unit that doesn't fight Hydras, it doesn't fight Lynx.
Yeah, and kind of interesting that you mentioned that, because right now, with that quick layer and the 3 hatches, there's a Hydralisk den already, as well as that Spire out. So going up to the Spire, but having the Hydralisk den, do you think he has any special plans for this Tasteless?
We will have to see. It's going to see how it depends on how he reacts to the Corsairs. It gives him some options, right? A layer allows him to go for lurkers if he wanted to do that. I don't think that would be an ideal play. He could, of course, try to snipe the Corsair with the Scourge and then try to surprise him and teching into mutas. That's one way to play, but it doesn't always pan out that well. Or he may just try to hatch up. We see him adding another one here right now. Start to throw down Evolution Chambers and just bring us into a pretty standard ZVP. As far as the Protoss goes, he is getting more gateways. He's getting +1 attack without having to have spent money on those cannons right away at the start of the game. And he'll have a much more robust Zealot army coming out here.
Yeah, both sides really kind of pushing their economies forward, being as greedy as possible and teching up quickly. So it looks like, hopefully at least, we'll get into kind of a big macro game on this map. Definitely can be very exciting with all the different paths around.
That's right. Protoss has some choices. They can power up and try to deny the fourth here for the Zerg. They can also try to steadily move out and just try to secure their own third. It's going to depend on when and where Jaedong wants to expand. The Corsairs are still just continuing to move out, looking for any stray overlords, but also just checking to see if there's any spotters here on the map. And for Jaedong, he really doesn't have much of anything on the map. He's turtled up pretty heavily.
Yeah, that's very true. And, you know, checking for these overlords is kind of an extra safety move as well. If there's no overlords near you and you have Dark Templar tech, the Zerg can't really attack you until they have Overlord speed. So this kind of Corsair movement is going to make Bisu feel very safe as he moves out now with these Zealots.
And let's not forget, this is a different opener than what Bisu did in the last game. It may look the same due to the unit composition, but he got here in a very different fashion. These Zealots are now going to come out here on the map. When, of course, this was with no DTs, so this is much more of a powerhouse, getting the Zerg space build versus trying to sneak in. And the Jaedong is basically turtled up perfectly. These Zealots can't really get in there.
Yeah, those Zealots are actually much stronger than the small army Jaedong has, but with this type of building layout and those two Sunkens finishing up, this is a great wall in and something you don't want to attack with melee units.
So we saw he made an evolution chamber there at the entrance. That completely tightened up and blocked that out. And then when the Zealots backed off, he canceled it. So that was just enough time for a second Sunken Colony to finish up. These are very tight builds these guys are doing. And since Bisu realizes he's probably not going to be able to put any real pressure on his opponent, he goes ahead and expands while keeping these Corsairs bunched up.
Yeah, I'm loving this play out of Bisu right now, just kind of getting his bases and upgrades as quickly as he can. Of course, Jaedong's still sitting on 3 bases. We'll have to see if he wants to take that 4th anytime soon here. You can't really sit even against Protoss for too long in this matchup.
Some Hydras over here in the back. Note the Corsairs might not spot that right away. They're continuing to try to move around the map and see if there's anything stray that Jaedong has left out. Jaedong playing a much more conservative game, by the way, in comparison to game 1. He actually wants this game to go into a super late one.
Yeah, it definitely is looking that way. Now look at this harassment from the Corsairs, coming right in and picking off some of these Overlords, despite the fact that he's gotten speed a lot more early this game.
Okay, so he hit a lot of the Hydras, and the Corsairs didn't see that much, and now he's going to barrel forward. He has Overlord speed. He may be trying to come in here and bust down the expansion that Bisu was trying to take. This is a very sneaky attack because those Corsairs were unable to scout the majority of these Hydras.
Some of the Zealots getting caught as they move into the center of the map. Will Bisu be able to hold on at this point? Definitely enough Hydras to kill off these Zealots, but they have a slight high ground edge right here, so some shots going to be missed. The Corsairs coming down, trying to erase these Overlords out of existence, but every Zealot looks like it's gonna fall.
There are more Overlords on the way. If we can get a shot of the expansion here, a lot of cannons coming in. It's not clear if Psionic Storm is done, but with 1 DT, these Overlords have to meet up with the rest of this army.
Yeah, those Overlords are so crucial right now, but the Hydra's gonna go ahead, jump on top of the cannons. He doesn't want them all to warp in, but Bisu might have enough time here. A Psy Storm and another come out, shredding those Hydras with the DT, helping to clean up.
There may be just enough cannons. The Overlords come in here. It was a DT that was keeping most of those alive. The Corsairs come in. One more Overlord assassinated. They back out. But I don't see enough Hydras now to break down that entrance.
This was a great defense from Bisu. Only Bisu can make a decision like sacrificing that many Zealots to buy the time for his cannons, to get the DT out, to have 2 Psy Storms ready. Almost anyone else in the world would have died immediately to this rush from Jaedong.
He's suiciding the Corsairs in one more time. Overlord still bruised. Now it's Zealots and an Archon coming forward here. Any Hydras he can isolate, he will. He sees the Overlords. He tries to back up. Corsairs are eager to try to intercept. Scourge are eager to try to intercept these Corsairs. Right now, Bisu has to hang on. If he loses this 3rd base, he will lose the game.
Oh, the Scourge actually connect with quite a few of those Corsairs, so that's kind of a good thing for Jaedong as the game goes longer. But as he pokes in again to that front, he realizes no way, no how is it worthwhile to attack into those cannons.
Yeah, especially with these Templars coming down here. Really, the combination of cannons and Templars, it stops Hydras from ever penetrating that expansion. And so, Jaedong's expanding on this. He may try to still stay out in the front and try to harass. The one lone Corsair from Bisu is going to scout around. And in some ways, one of the bigger stories about that whole interaction was the fact that the Corsairs were all taken out. Now,
that is a really big deal, too.
Those Corsairs are only being made out of 1 Stargate, so it's going to take them a long time to ever get enough Corsairs to match that again this game, which means that really it's hard for Bisu to try to scout and predict the Zerg's movements.
And notice that Bisu immediately starts up his Corsairs again as well. This is a very Bisu move. He does not like to have no Corsairs in the air. If you end up losing all of them, then a sudden Mutalisk tech switch can just give the game to the Zerg player. So he's being very careful about replenishing his stock.
And it should be noted he's hiding the Corsairs, so he's not going to bring them out until he has enough, which may mislead Jaedong here. Jaedong now moving out. He's got his Overlords here in his Hydras. He's trying to stay away from the Templars while still kiting these Zealots in the Archon.
The two High Templars coming up right now. The Psy Storm is super crucial for this engagement. The Hydras turn around. Some good micro coming out of Jaedong here. Oh, a nice storm comes down, but he pulls out of it, not losing too many Hydras.
Meanwhile, in the main, a DT has gotten inside, killing as many drones as possible. It was brought there by that shuttle. Already 10 kills.
Oh, Jaedong does not even realize what's going on right now. You do not get a warning when DTs are one-shotting your drones, and a huge amount of his economy being taken out instantly.
So many of Bisu's games look like this. Even though it seemed like Jaedong was fine holding on into the front, the DT coming into the main has caused a huge amount of economic damage.
That was 14 or 15 drones being taken out. It is a completely unacceptable error here by Jaedong. Bisu on top of his multitasking, getting that harassment done and just crippling his economy.
And now with the Corsairs back in the game, he hid them that entire time. I believe he only used them to try to escort the shuttle to get over to that location. Now he can start harassing Overlords here, and maybe that DT or another DT can come in once again and start doing some damage. And while that's going on, Bisu may try to attack the upper right.
That is a big army right there as well. Not too many Psy Storms available in it, but that is a lot of Zealots against not a lot of Hydras. He attacks forward here. Jaedong is going to have to pull back with his Hydras.
Okay, the Zealots are coming up now. Lurker's getting into position. He needs these in order to hold off the Zealot push. One observer overhead, and Jaedong snipes it down.
A very big move right there. Once you pick off those observers, you cannot engage that many Lurkers with a Zealot-based army. So Bisu runs around right now, trying to look for another angle to do some damage.
It looks like Jaedong may have turtled up enough. He also might try to actually jump in. Bisu could try to jump into the natural now. It's hard for him to tell what's actually there and if he can penetrate any of these locations. But Bisu, going the more conservative route, decides to back up. He's going to try to expand to the bottom left location. And keep in mind, there are not a lot of bases on this map. After this base is taken, there are only 4 available expansions on the map, 2 of which are in the middle, and they're basically uncomfortable for either player to take.
Yeah, those bases are super hard to take. Being on the low ground, you have a ridge behind you where your opponent can attack. They can attack downhill into you. So realistically, we are seeing them take almost every base that is truly takeable in the matchup. So this generally is pretty good for the Protoss player, especially considering just looking at the supply, looking at the battles that we've had so far.
As we see now, Bisu's moving out again. He's very close to getting maxed out. And in case you're surprised by how low Jaedong is in supply, that's actually not that abnormal for this matchup. Zerg, when they get maxed out, are the scariest thing really you can experience in StarCraft Brood War. So he's able to turtle up and hang on for a while. But Bisu will try to look for some openings here.
Bisu running through the center right now, has some Dragoons added in. Those will certainly help out quite a bit against the Lurkers, dealing lots of damage to them. 3 observers here as well. He's going to go ahead and rush uphill. A bunch of Lurkers burrowing. Ling's coming as well to help buffer. A ton of splash damage going down on these Zealots.
Bisu now backing up. Jaedong wants to take control of this high ground up here. Storm's blanketing the area. We're still waiting to see if Bisu can actually get up in this location. He's done a very good job of keeping all of his observers alive. Now Dragoons and Templars will counter Lurkers, so Jaedong needs to get reinforcements over here fast.
But Bisu has to be a little bit careful as well as he runs out of splash damage, as he runs out of Zealots. The Dragoons can have a little bit of a hard time against the Zerg units. It looks like he still wants to attack, but as Jaedong rallies out more and attacks from the high ground, we will see Bisu lose more units.
But Bisu is having reinforcements come up here right now, and if he can run the Zealots through, possibly to try to get the Lurker spines to split so the damage isn't optimized, he might be able to break this location.
Keeping those observers alive. Just masterful micro coming out of Bisu. He is going to go away from this low ground area, get onto the high ground, and come in from a different angle. Jaedong is going to have to reposition these lurkers.
And if he doesn't do that in time, this expansion is going to fall, and Bisu will take a massive lead. Lurkers are burrowing up. This is a pretty nice arc setup here by Jaedong, but with the number of Dragoons, it's going to be tough even for them to try to hold on.
Oh, with these Zealots coming through as well. The spines of these lurkers are going in every which way direction. The Hydra's starting to deal some damage to these Dragoons, but Bisu microing back nicely.
4 Templars are coming up. Only 3 lurkers here to try to defend. A storm goes down, bringing the lurker count to 1.
Oh man, Jaedong does not have much left over right here. This expansion is so important for him. He must hold on. Lurker Ling rallying up right now, trying to burrow these lurkers. Some great side storms coming down, and suddenly Dark Swarms hit the field.
The Dark Swarms are planted down there, meaning the Dragoons can no longer combat the lurkers, but Bisu's not stopping. He now rotates down here into the middle. The one Defiler continuing to consume Lings to get enough Dark Swarms. Can Jaedong hold on? He needs some more Dark Swarms right now.
The Dark Swarms go down, but Zealots can fight toe-to-toe against Zerglings underneath them. The lurkers rushing down right now. Bisu blocking the first one from getting under, blocking possibly another one here as well. Beautiful micro, but finally Jaedong gets some under the swarm.
If he just has enough Zealots, he can do it. That's it. GG! Bisu takes game number 2. Making this series so far 2-0. Jaedong has to come back 3 wins in a row, and that's a tall order against somebody like Bisu.
Oh yeah, especially the way that Bisu is playing here tonight. Just awesomely done. I would say, Tasteless, that DT drop, what an important moment in this game. Jaedong was keeping it close until a DT gets into his main base and kills off 14 drones. That is just such huge damage for a Zerg player.
Yeah, that's really what started it all, isn't it? We've seen this a lot with Bisu, and it's kind of crazy because you know it's coming, but it's just so difficult to physically stop in time. He puts this pressure on early on. He comes in, he does everything possible to get your attention in the middle of the map, and then he shuttles a DT in. And remember, guys, you are only notified of a battle if you're taking damage. If a unit dies, that doesn't count as taking damage. So while Jaedong is constantly trying to reposition, and we should mention also, the larger an army you have, the more hotkeyed armies, or the hotkeyed groups of units you have, so you have to constantly reposition that. Bisu was able to distract him. He got in there, was it 13 kills or 15?
It was 14
like
or 15 drone kills on that one DT.
Which is more than enough. And that didn't kill Jaedong, but it certainly started the ball rolling for Bisu, and he was eventually able to close it out. Jaedong is going to have to bring the best games of his life, and 3 of them in a row if he's going to win the series.
All right, well, definitely good luck to him. You can see he's remaining as focused as he possibly can. Known for his intensity, Zerg player gonna have to really keep his eye on that mini-map, because this is what Bisu's really well known for. He's possibly the greatest multitasker ever in StarCraft. He is great at pulling your attention around, sending in DTs the back way, harassing all over the place.
Let's go into game number 3, Bisu versus Jaedong. In the upper right, in the white, he is Jaedong! And his opponent here in the bottom left in the orange. Make some noise for Bisu!
Our map here, an old favorite of many a Brood War player. It is Blue Storm, a 2-player map with some really interesting terrain around, a little tiny area here that things like Zealots and Zerglings, probes, drones can fit through, but not too much of anything else. A lot of different terrain changes. The third base, generally this is where you'll see it taken, but that doesn't have a gas. So there's a lot of interesting decisions you're going to have to make on Blue Storm in the mid game.
Yeah, this is, again, that little location we see just down there, that area, it changes everything depending on how the players are playing. there are so many fun, different games you can have depending on who clogs that up with what unit, or who leaves that open for his opponent to try to slip through.
And there's so many little tricks as well, right? Like, for instance, you can try to run through there with a group of speed zealots later on to harass, but the Zerg player can do things like morph an egg right there, try to use some walling measures. Another thing to mention is when you're trying to attack move your opponent, you really have to be careful about where you're issuing these commands. It takes a lot of commands to get a big bulky army to move around this map without getting stuck.
Protoss right now is going to go for a quick expand, and if we could just take a look at the oh, hold up, nice deny. If he can get over there one more time, this is really a big game of chicken here. So he does actually drive the probe back. He actually gets the kill. Nicely done there with the moving shot on the drum. So back at the Protoss is natural. The location of that forge and the pylon there is to make a small entrance way so that it's harder for Zerglings to just run around. A lot of these maps in Brood War, they have very funnily shaped expansions. And every map a Protoss player has to figure out exactly how to wall in to stop everything a Zerg could throw at him. And this is probably one of the more common wall-ins we see on a map like this. Even though it looks very different from any other map we've casted so far, this is basically the correct way to do it. But this is also one of the harder locations to hold no matter what for Protoss, even early game.
You're definitely right about that. And look at this, the Zergling's coming through. He's trying to stall him out with his probe so that cannon can finish up. So as it finishes, you can definitely keep those Zerglings back a little bit more. The probes are out here to help block Zerglings, to mess up their AI, make sure that he can't just run in and surround the cannon or run by or anything like that.
Exactly, and it looks like Jaedong's gonna try to do that anyways. Coming in here now, the probes, they are gonna be picked up. He can try to run into the main, and he does. 4 links on the loose.
Oh, this is a huge moment right now for Jaedong. He does not have Zergling speed, nor does he have it on the way. But these 4 Zerglings are so tough to kill off for a Protoss player.
So, what the Protoss wants to do is try to have his workers stacked up, and he wants to try to distribute damage onto the links. What Jaedong's trying to do is come in here, and sometimes he actually attacks, other times he fakes it out. And he actually gets 1 kill. If he could just get 1 kill on the link, he does that too. Ooh. Now down to 2 links. A little bit of a misplay here by Jaedong.
He does kill 2 probes though, so that's pretty good so far, but definitely he wants to keep these lings alive as long as possible. Even when a zealot comes out, the lings are just a bit quicker. They can run away from everything. Another probe going down. Great micro there by Jaedong.
This one probe over here just trying to harass the drone there of Jaedong. It looks like he's going to go ahead and instead scout inside the main. But Jaedong's going to make sure that those 2 Zerglings inside of the main base of Bisu are going to stay alive for as long as possible. And this really taxes the APM for Bisu. This is much easier for Jaedong to do than it is for Bisu to try to defend.
It almost catches that one. An important thing to note is that the 2nd scouting probe died for Bisu. So now he doesn't really know what's going on. This could be mass lings, it could be going up to Hydras. It's hard to say, but in fact it's going to be just a quick layer with that bottom right base being taken. That is, I guess, really the closest gas 3rd base that you can take, even though it's quite far away.
It's quite an uncomfortable map at times here for the Zerg, because you feel very spread out. At the same time, the Protoss also feels a bit naked on this map as well, as there's so many different locations they can be poked in at and harassed at. Again, the 1 link still remaining alive. This link is just going to be used to try to monitor anything that might be built here inside the main. You can see the probe actually trying to block out that 1 Zergling. And we do get confirmation that it is going to be a Stargate opening, unless Bisu decides to cancel after the Zergling is killed.
Well, the Zergling doesn't look like it's dying yet, so I think we'll see that Stargate probably finish up. The Sellout going ahead and killing a few of the lings in the middle, but he finally picks off the Zergling here.
Stargate continuing on the way here. The Zerg is just trying to intercept any of these Zealots. Of course, Bisu wants to try to put on pressure, but if Jaedong catches these Zealots and traps them, the amount of damage that's dealt is huge. I mean, it means Bisu's big army that he wants to push out with later on is going to be that much smaller.
Now, quite a few Speedlings are out right now, and these are really, really dangerous, especially because Blue Storm has that kind of funky wall. So if he can get in here and surround the cannon, look at this, Bisu pulling the probes out right now. He gets his Zealots in front as well. So far, very strong defense.
More lings on the way right now. The Zealot goes down. The probes have to get a proper block, or this expansion could fall.
He needs to keep that cannon alive. Really, it's his only damage right now. The Zerglings, though, they take it out, starting to pick off some probes here as well. Jaedong with the decisive Zergling attack, dealing tons of damage to Bisu.
And with no pylon remaining, we do have a Zealot doing some harass over here, but back at home, the expansion is still exposed. The Nexus could go down. More links coming in. It's going to be up to Bisu to use the one Zealot and all of these probes to try to get a good block here and take out these lings.
Oh, but the Zealot ends up falling, which means these probes are going to be eaten in seconds, and GG! Jaedong takes game number 3.
Nicely done there by Jaedong. Not allowing Bisu to get to the phase of the game where Bisu's at his strongest. And I can't emphasize this enough. Even though most of the time when we see Bisu play, he always gets to the late game. He has Storm, he has DTs and shuttles and a bunch of Corsairs. You can take a Protoss out before he gets there, and that's exactly what Jaedong did. Jaedong exploited the fact that the second base for the Protoss in that map, it's open, it's really awkward, it's hard to have everything covered. And honestly, Bisu was a little bit greedy back there. He was trying to harass out. Jaedong called his bluff, dove in to the natural expansion, and the moment that cannon went down, Bisu knew this game was over.
Jaedong kind of showcasing his signature decisive play. He chooses at the drop of a hat to go for a massive Zergling attack. And if that Zergling attack doesn't work, if Bisu blocks that, keeps his cannon alive, doesn't lose too many probes, then suddenly Jaedong has spent so much time, so much money on these Zerglings that he's simply behind for trying it.
We're now going to go into game number 4. Bisu will most likely be a little bit more cautious, especially seeing as how he lost game number 3. I don't know if this encourages Jaedong to try something like that, maybe even being more aggressive, or if he tries to go back and play more of a macro game. I do feel if you get these guys in a more textbook ZVP, maybe Bisu is just slightly better today.
Sure. Well, I think it's going to matter somewhat upon the map as well. Of course, Blue Storm can lend itself to games like that because of the kind of wonky natural, how it's all positioned. It looks like we are getting ready now, Tasteless, to go into game number 4. Can Jaedong tie it up and bring us to that ace match?
Artosis, I hope he can. It's going to be difficult, though. If Jaedong just has a clean early game, I wonder, and I mean a macro game when I say a clean early game, how exactly does it look if he's going to beat somebody like Bisu, who also has a clean early game? We're going to find out in just a little bit, actually, because we're going to a break. When we come back, we're going to continue the show match between Bisu and Jaedong. Stay tuned.
Today, we retake our legacy.
The ultimate real-time strategy game is going free to play.
It's about time.
StarCraft 2.
We are back, continuing on with the show match between Bisu and Jaedong, the two best players in their respective races in StarCraft Brood War.
So far, it really opened up with Bisu dominating Jaedong, going up to 2-0, but in game number 3 on Blue Storm, Jaedong turned on that aggression and was able to break Bisu before the game got too long.
We're now entering that game. Again, if Bisu wins, it's all over. If Jaedong wins, we're going to go to game number 5. Introducing our player here in the upper right, in the orange. Make some noise for Jaedong! And in the upper left, in the brown, he is Bisu!
For map number 4, which is, of course, match point for Bisu. If he wins this, he wins it all. We are going to Tau Cross, a 3-player map, and, of course, another one of the big favorites of the old StarCraft 1 scene. Tasus, anything in particular we should be watching out for in a PvZ on this map?
Well, this is a map where it's a little bit tricky to get your natural up, even though it's a tight area. There's a lot of weird abusive stuff Zerg can do to you on here. You can end up with a Protoss being so boxed in because of the way the Wallen is and the fact that it's close to the Nexus that it's then hard to get out. There's also the fact that the third base is wide open. So this may be a map that Jaedong is very comfortable with. A lot of times you see Protoss go to great feats to clog everything up so Zerglings can't get in, but then there's this huge problem where it's really, you could be contained with just Hydralisks.
Yeah.
it's not easy to get out. So let's definitely watch for that, or we may see Bisu try to play around that.
All right, it'll be interesting to see how he wants to approach his scouts into Jaedong first. So, of course, that's a best case scenario here for Bisu. Gonna go ahead and throw down that Forge before his Nexus. Playing it a little bit safe.
There's also some tricky cannon rush stuff you can do here. I doubt we're going to see it, as cannon rushes have pretty much been mapped out and solved. Very nice denial there, by the way. You can block the hatchery from being made if you just keep the probe over there. Jaedong using the moving drone shot gets it down just in the second, the last possible second there.
Now let's see if he does anything cheeky here. No, looks like the probe will just go into the main base. That little choke that goes out into your expansion area, you can put a pylon there and really choke things up a little bit. So something that Jaedong was looking out for. Now with the Zerglings out, really not afraid of anything.
That's right. We do see the cannon coming up here now. The next thing Protoss will need to add is a gateway and Vespian gas geyser. And from there, we will have the tech begin to be unpacked. We do want to watch and see if Jaedong is going to try to go for a quick kill. Usually if the Protoss is good, you won't die to any insane rush. But sometimes players do things that are counterintuitive to the top tier players because one player might discount that as a possibility.
Oh, certainly. That can be a great way to throw someone off guard if they're expecting you to play a certain way. That's kind of the poker-like aspect of StarCraft 1 and StarCraft 2, switching things up, playing those very important mind games.
Jaedong continuing to mine gas right now. We do not see the layer started up just yet. He will need to get Zergling speed here, as he does want to have lings that are fast enough that he can basically kill a probe as soon as he sees it.
The layer going to be tech 2 immediately upon getting his first 100 gas. Jaedong probably wanting to go up to that spire quite quickly once again. And I expect for Bisu to go into Corsairs also.
We have that cybernetics core about halfway done. It should be noted that the main for each player is very large. Now that means that Zerg can do big drops in there later on in the game. It also means, just like we saw in game number 2, you could sneak a DT in there with a shuttle. The Zerg might not be ready.
Yeah, and it's important to notice that actually Bisu, his natural expanding route into that third base is kind of behind Jaedong's main. So he can very easily shuttle over things like Dark Templars to an area that isn't very important for Jaedong other than the fact he can be hurt there.
Okay, the probe is now chased back. This is where Bisu does the Zealot pressure. Now, it can be easily misled to a casual observer that the Zealot's going to come all the way across the map. Not necessarily. Simply the threat of the Zealot makes the Zerg make more lings. And if you're making lings, you're not making drones. So this is smart. Of course, Jaedong can try to take the risk of not doing that, but Bisu's pretty good at having a read on this. Now, seems like Bisu almost overextended here as he's now getting zoned back out. And I don't actually know if the Zealot can get back. This would be a big catch here for Jaedong if he gets it.
A bit of miss micro right there, and Jaedong picks it off, not losing a Ling until just right then. And you know, normally a Zealot is actually a match for 4 Lings, so a bit of a mistake here from Bisu, but not something that's likely to cost him the game at this point.
So Corsairs are being produced, and they'll be continuously produced here. And it looks like most likely this is going to be Corsair with a lot of Zealots to back it up. And this is, I think, a smart move, especially, even though it's fairly common, especially on this map, you can get Zealots easily in and out of your base while still having a fairly tight wall and keeping the pressure on the Zerg, and then eventually taking a third base when Zerg's in a defensive posture.
Right now, that Spire is about to finish, so we should see some Scourge coming out, trying to push back those Corsairs that'll be hunting Overlords and scouting what Jaedong is up to. Does find one here in the center of the map, so that's going to be a quick and easy kill here for Bisu.
The other Overlord down here in the bottom left is being tucked away and hidden. Jaedong hoping that'll be, if it is found, it'll be found much later in this game. And Jaedong's now supply blocked. Bisu is itching to try to get in the main. You want to get confirmation on what the tech is. In this case, it's a Spire. In fact, Bisu needs to be careful because if he gets there right when a Scourge comes out, he'll lose that Corsair.
Yeah, losing that first one can be very painful indeed. There's those 4 Scourge we were talking about before, so he's got to make sure to get this home, get it over some cannons, and make sure he continues to produce a few more Corsairs.
The Robo Bay is coming up, which is an interesting choice of tech at this point in time. I was actually anticipating many more gateways being made here. Instead, we only have a second gateway being made, and it's a Templar Archives that he's getting. I'm wondering what he's got in store for us. Keep in mind, the Corsairs are scouting the main. They have not yet seen that Robo, so this may look all par for the course in an ordinary PvZ to Jaedong.
You know, I really like that Robo, to be honest, Tasteless. Like we were talking about before, DT drops can be really, really deadly, and the back of Jaedong's main base faces Bisu. It's a very short distance for him to fly and try to get some serious damage done.
The 4 Zealots come out here. Now, Jaedong may be already raising an eyebrow at this, saying, oh, that's not enough Zealots. This seems a little bit strange. You're pushing out a little bit too quickly right now. And this is keeping the pressure on. And if you see that small number of Zealots, that tells you, as a Zerg player, that he has to have invested his money somewhere else. In this case, it's going to be that tech with the Robo.
All right, a big amount of Zerglings coming out, surrounding a lot of these Zealots. Great micro from Bisu as he kind of stutter steps back a bit here, getting a lot of hits off on the Zerglings, but eventually he will lose all these Zealots.
Really good trading there by Bisu. A good catch, though, by Jaedong at the very end, thinning that Zealot count down to just 2, both in the red. Can we get a shot of the Robo here? I want to see if the tech has actually started out from that yet. He has the shuttle, and I'm assuming there are DTs in there.
Yeah, I would imagine that he has to have at least a DT here to go and harass with. It looks like those Corsairs, yep, they go over and clean up any Scourge that are waiting for this. Now, will Jaedong be ready for this?
I think certainly no. The question, though, is also, will Bisu be ready at the front of his base as a lot of Lings and Hydras are gearing up for an attack?
Oh my gosh, almost no cannons up there at the front, but the 2 DTs getting into the main base here of Jaedong. A lot of damage sure to happen on both sides.
No Overlord in the main. One coming up now to the natural. Meanwhile, at the entrance, only 1 cannon is complete. No Zealots. The Hydras and Lings continue to push in. This may be too much. I don't know if Jaedong is going to be stopped at this moment.
Jaedong doing a very sharp attack right here, bringing up some Overlords as well, so this DT should not be able to hold on against everything. A huge amount of Hydras just cutting through. The DT going to be picked off, and I believe Jaedong should be able to take this game.
The probes are being evacuated. It looks like there's no way to stop this. GG! Bisu loses game number 2. Jaedong is the victor, and with that second win, we're now tied up. It's going to go to game 5, Artosis. We're going to have our last game. Jaedong with his second win.
That was quite a sharp victory there by Jaedong, hitting precisely when the DT drop was coming out. Of course, Bisu spent a lot of money to do that, getting that robotics facility, getting the multiple Dark Templars and the shuttle. Because of all that, he just didn't really have a very fast set of cannons. He didn't have fast Psy Storm, and that attack from Jaedong just bowled right through him.
It was really quite brilliant how Jaedong handled that. But I also feel like Bisu is responsible for the way that game went. That was a risky play. And certainly he was able to do damage in the main, but of course, you don't have enough there. That's why we don't see that as a normal PvZ build. A quick DT drop, when you say quick DT drop, you think Protoss versus Terran.
Yeah. It's certainly not as common here, but you know, given the positions, given the fact that he was on that match point trying to just pick up a victory, I kind of get it in a way, but now he's let Jaedong just close the gap. Going into game 5, it's really anyone's series now.
I am super curious to see what Bisu's going to do in this game, because I can only imagine he's going to go for a more orthodox approach. I like the fact that he's mixing it up, but it seems like Jaedong is somebody who will automatically interrupt whatever you're trying to do if it's outside the normal PvZ style of play. I think Bisu has to go for a more just Corsair with a normal amount of zealots, not 4, but maybe like, you know, 8 or something, where the Zerg is actually under threat.
Yeah, you know, maybe stock standard play there. He just holds on against these Hydras. We get into a bigger macro game, but Bisu, of course, showing a lot of flexibility with his strategies, kind of all over the place. Map number 5, though, does he buckle down and play a big macro game?
Yeah, we have not really gotten to a late game PvZ here, Artosis. Let's see if this game is going to be the one. In the upper right, in the red, our Zerg player, he is Jaedong! And his opponent here in the bottom right, our Protoss player, make some noise for Bisu!
Our map going to be Circuit Breaker, a big 4-player map with just a ton of expansions all over it. Definitely could be a good one to have one of these big macro games on. But it looks here like we have a pretty reasonably quick pool.
Oh, wow,
Jaedong.
look at that. Although Bisu's going to scout it. Fortune on Bisu's side right now. This is what we call a 9 pool, one of the older builds. Okay, he's going to do the extractor trick with that. There's a couple of variations of this. But getting that spawning pool out right away. And this is actually, it can be pretty scary. The Protoss does not get to play a easygoing early PvZ. You have to be ready for Lings right off the bat. And, you know, I got to say, Bisu was very fortunate to actually scout this right away. Had this been the last location that Bisu scouted, this game might look very different.
Yeah, sometimes you can just straight up die to a Zergling rush. You know, he's gonna have to make some cannons here before his Nexus and try to keep this probe alive so he can see how many Zerglings are being made, because that is a really crucial piece of information.
That's right. Of course, even though the Nexus is up later, the drone count is overall a little bit lower here. Although, as you look at this game, actually, this is a cool little trick he did. He only made 2 Lings.
Yeah,
this is actually very smart. So a lot of times people will make all the Lings, but since he realizes, okay, you already know what I'm doing, but you don't know what's inside the eggs when they're making, he only gets 2 Lings, the bare minimum, to chase that away. Now his hatchery has started before the Protoss's Nexus.
Yeah, not too bad of an outcome right there. You see some of these mind games taking place between these 2 old rivals. Of course, Bisu staying on top of his probe micro for the time being. Checking out, when are you going to take that gas? Are you going to throw down a 3rd hatch? And the answer to both is yes.
So the probe is continuing to scout around now. With the 3 hatches coming up, this could be a pretty standard game here from Jaedong. Again, with the Protoss, we want to see what is that tech going to be. Seeing just 2 Lings alone tells the Protoss you don't have to be that afraid of Zerglings, at least not for now. So he has the 1 bare minimum cannon that can easily hold off 2 Lings. And then he'll get his gateway and his gas and begin to tech up.
Now, did Bisu lose his scouting probe actually once again? It looks like he did.
I believe so, yes.
This is where it can get a little bit more hairy for Bisu. If Jaedong, for instance, were to just make Zerglings for the next few rounds of Larva, he'd get a lot of them, and if you don't block the holes in this wall or add another cannon, that's a situation where Jaedong may be able to run in, kill your cannon, kill the pylon, get a big advantage. But it doesn't look like that's necessarily what's going to happen.
Well, I mean, with the 1 probe, that's the only probe now that's moving out on the map again. We have some more Lings being brought in here. I mean, Jaedong's very good at masking stuff like this. You have to keep that in mind. and anything he can hide. See, there's only 2 lings being shown here. And
Yeah,
now
so
4.
He sees 4 total. The other ones are actually running away from the probe right now. So Jaedong is massing those lings. And if the probe doesn't see this coming, there's a big chance Bisu won't block against this.
He might have just completely gone around. I think Bisu senses it. His Zealot's going back.
His Zealot sees those lings coming down. He's going to have to pull probes up into the wall as well. He has to clog every single hole. He cannot let these lings in. Don't forget, all these lings could have been drones for Jaedong. So to have these lings and not do damage is damage to Jaedong.
That's right. It seems like there's no way that Bisu's going to be broken here. A completely tight wall in with probes being made throughout the game. And he's going to try, it looks like, to dive on that one Zealot, but that certainly is not going to work.
Oh, he's trying to break through these probes right now. He has a ton of lings just funneling down. Can he break through? A second cannon comes up. I don't think this is going to work out for Jaedong.
It seems like Jaedong is trying to all in, trying to take out that one probe in the corner, but with a second cannon and another Zealot out, this seems to be an impossibility. This may cost Jaedong the game.
That is a lot of Zerglings that have done a lot of nothing here so far. Another probe gets up into the main base. He can start looking at these drone counts, realizing how many lings. Oh my God, lings still being made here in the main. Bisu is going to understand that the only thing he must do is stay alive.
Yeah, any more cannons and Zealots, that's going to help. If he can just hold this position, he should be in good shape. The fact that there are only links coming out of Jaedong's base right now means there are no other late game options. He's going to have to make this work in the next minute.
All right, here he goes once again on top of these Zealots. The probe's starting to be pulled up, and
that's
GG! That is it. Jaedong's rush not working out here. Bisu will take the series 3-2.
That last game, he tried to outmaneuver that probe and surprise Bisu, but Bisu was ready. He sensed that something was wrong, and that means Bisu is the victor in this series. That was a fantastic set of games between these 2 guys.
You know, Bisu really starting to play a little bit more defensively there at the end. Jaedong trying to trick him back and forth several times, maneuvering his lings around, but Bisu getting just enough scouting intel to stay alive.
Jaedong never able to exhibit his skill in late game. Each of these games ended in early game or right around mid game, right when the third base became important. Really cool to see these guys come all the way out here and also to exhibit StarCraft Remastered, a fantastic game. The original esport, the game that started it all.
It truly is, and these guys continue to play it out in South Korea professionally on TV, having great matches all the time. Definitely hope to be seeing them a lot more in the future as well.
Absolutely. So many competitions here in Korea and many more around the world. I'm curious to see how things will develop as the scene continues to grow. You know, one thing that's great about StarCraft Remastered, it shows that no game ever has to go away and people can still continue to compete in it.
Very true about that, Tasteless. Looks like in just a moment here we'll have an interview with our victor, Bisu. Smix, take it away.
Thank you very much, Artosis. Bisu, congratulations. You are the ultimate title fight champion. And I also heard that today is your birthday. So as a birthday gift, what is it like to win $20,000 and become the ultimate title fight winner? 일단 축하드리고요. 오늘 김태균 선수의 생일이라고 들었는데 생일 선물로 2만 불이랑 이 쇼매치 승자가 된 기분이 어떤지 좀 설명해 주세요.
저도 미국에서 이렇게 생일 파티 할 줄 몰랐고요. 좀 그런 기념일이라 오늘 이기고 싶었거든요. 근데 뭐 게임이 좀 뭔가 처음에 이길 뻔했는데 그 다음에 이제 질 뻔해가지고 나중에 이제 5경기 가서는 이거 좀 분위기가 안 좋다 생각했는데 뭐 마지막에 좀 제동이가 공격적으로 해줘가지고 잘 막아가지고 이긴 것 같고요. 오늘 많이 이런 큰 자리에 오니까 좀 긴장이 많이 되는데 아무튼 기분이 좋네요.
So he says, I definitely did not know that I would be celebrating a birthday party like this in America with you guys. Coming into today's Ultimate title fight match against Jaedong, I really wanted to win because it was my birthday. In the beginning of the match, I was doing so well, so I thought I would easily win, but then later on, I started to lose, so I started to feel a little bit nervous, but in that fifth game, I think the reason I was able to win was Jaedong came at me aggressively, and I was able to defend, and that's why I was able to win. And when it comes to being here on this main stage in front of all you guys, I definitely felt the nerves, but at the same time, I'm just so happy that I was able to win. And last but not least, Bisu, I know that mainly you've played your career almost entirely in Korea. What is the feeling like playing in front of this completely different audience here in America? 일단 선수 생활을 거의 한국에서만 했는데 이 해외 팬들 앞에서 게임하는 기분이 어떠세요? 뭐가 다르세요?
뭔가 열기 자체가 달라가지고 좀 한국도 열정적이긴 한데 그 외국의 그 열정은 좀 못 따라가는 것 같고요. 원래는 좀 올까 고민을 많이 했는데 동기부여를 좀 갖기 위해서 이 블리즈콘 리마스터 매치에 나오게 됐습니다.
So he said, honestly, when it comes to the fans here, the passion is just so overwhelming. That being said, of course, the Korean fans are passionate as well, but I think that they can't keep up with the passion of you guys. So it's really great that I was able to come because I was initially not even sure if I wanted to, but I'm really glad that I was able to come for this StarCraft Remastered show match. And of course, Jaedong, I need to speak to you as well. You spent a lot of time playing both in Korea and in America. What is it like to play in front of this foreign audience once again?
이재동 선수 한국에서도 생활 많이 해왔고 해외 팬들 앞에서도 많은 게임을 해봤는데 또 다시 한번 이 해외 팬들 앞에서 게임한 기분이 어떠세요?
일단 굉장히 영광이고요. 쇼매치를 하게 돼서 그리고 이번이 마지막 해외 그런 경기가 될 것 같아서 그냥 즐기는 마음으로 왔고 팬분들께서도 많이 즐거우셨으면 좋겠습니다.
Well, first of all, it's an absolute honor to be able to have played in this StarCraft Remastered show match for you guys. I think this is actually going to be my last time being able to play StarCraft overseas, so I really hope that you guys were able to enjoy it because I do think it is my last time. And last but not least, it is time to get the prize ceremony underway. So please welcome on stage the lead producer for StarCraft Remastered, Pete Stillwell. Thank you so much, Pete. And ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up one more time for the Ultimate Fight Champion participants in Bisu and Jaedong.
What an amazing way to cap off the first day of BlizzCon, ladies